Player News Q&A. It is Monday. It is noon. I am Eric Samulski. That is not James Shiano. That's DJ Short. Apparently, according to Twitter, the originator or the pioneer of the live Q&A, I think somebody said.
Yeah. Man, I'm trying to think when we first started them. Actually, when we first started live Q&As, they were not video. We had like this chat applet on Rotoworld that we'd embed, and then everything would be just typed. And I'd have a million like live questions, and we eventually went to YouTube, and here we are. But no, it's good to be back. We'll see if I still got it. I mean, Rich Hill signed a contract last week with the Kansas City Royals. 45-year-old Rich Hill. And yeah. I'm actually working on the power rankings that I post every week right now for NBCSports.com. And with Seth Lugo sideline and Cole Reagans, like maybe,
who knows?
You know. So listen, I had to pop in here.
If Yuli Gurriel can be thrown out in the outfield as some teams try to test him in the outfield, I think you could dust it off and do a Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. Rich Hill's my inspiration.
Yeah. So as a reminder to everybody, this is the Rotoworld Player News Q&A because so much of our information does come from our Player News. We have it updated pretty much 24/7. We sleep a little bit overnight, but there are people monitoring the news all the time. Keep that page open, bookmarked, everything. Anything we don't get to today or anything that happens after the Q&A, you can find the answers to that over on the Player News page. So make sure you check that out. We're here to help answer any of your fantasy baseball questions for this week, for your lineups, for anything like that. You can ask us questions on YouTube. You can ask us questions on Twitch. They all come on here. And we'll start with the first question. Props to Jeddah. This question came in on YouTube at 10:57 a.m. today, an hour ahead of when we started recording. And this is just a reminder. You can do that. When we post the link, get in there, ask a question. You can watch it live or you can watch it after the fact. But this is just a straight start today, DJ. It's going to be Ben Brown of the Cubs against Miami or Mitch Keller of the Pirates against the Reds. We're assuming that this is just for today because both of these guys have other starts, but they were not listed here. So we're treating this not as a 2-start week question.
Yeah, I'd take Ben Brown. The Cubs offense, Edward Cabrera is pitching for the Marlins. He's not been good to my knowledge. I think he has an ERA. It's approaching 6. Marlins lineup, not that exciting. It's in Miami too, I believe. So yeah, I think Ben Brown's who you roll with there.
Yeah, I see that definitely for the win potential. I think I like Mitch Keller slightly more just in terms of a pitcher, and the matchup isn't bad, but I think when you're streaming a starting pitcher, you really do want a win. And I'd say there's few better opportunities than the Cubs against the Marlins. Feels like a pretty locked in opportunity there. Frank. Oh, I'm sorry, Frank. So Frank asked a question, but I'm going to get to this first because Frank did ask me on Twitter if he should start David Peterson against the Yankees last night. And I said, if I didn't have to, I would probably rather not. And he pitched well. And I know, it wasn't the result you wanted for your Mets. But, you had to be happy from the effort of David Peterson yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, he pitched around some trouble. He's not, fantasy or real life, he's not a super exciting pitcher. He doesn't have the velocity. He's not someone who's going to strike out a ton of batters. That's just not his game. But sequencing, the assortment of pitches, he manages to get it done. He also controls the running game extremely well. So he's one of those guys that, I think he is matchup dependent. I was in a head-to-head matchup, and last night I did start Peterson. He got me just enough strikeouts to win the strikeouts category for the week. So it really depends on what your needs are. He's kind of one of those pitchers, but yeah, I mean, I think he has some tougher matchups coming up because the Mets in general have a really tough schedule coming up, Red Sox, Dodgers, etc. So, you could be a little more selective with Peterson moving forward, but yeah, he's been good.
He has been good. And also super nice guy. I've chatted with him a few times in the clubhouse this year, and he's just like always very forthcoming with information. So it's easy to root for guys like that. Frank's question though was, in a 2-start week, Gunnar Hoglund of the Athletics, home in both starts, which is important because it's Sacramento. It's starting to get hot. He gets the Angels coming off their just domination of the Dodgers. He gets the Angels and the Phillies, or Patrick Corbin against the Yankees and the White Sox. Wild that in the year 2025 we are entertaining Patrick Corbin start-sit questions, but it's a valid one because, Gunnar Hoglund, you see the Angels start, you like that. The home park is not great, and then getting the Phillies in that home park is really dangerous, and it's kind of like you're weighing the danger of starting Gunnar Hoglund at home against the Phillies versus Patrick Corbin against the Yankees, and then you have those other starts, and Corbin's start against the White Sox might actually be better than Gunnar Hoglund's start against the Angels.
I cannot start Patrick Corbin. I'm sorry.
I get it.
Is there a secret option C?
Right. It is tough. I got to tell you. Everything in my body says to start Gunnar Hoglund because I think that he's a better pitcher. I think, I guess Patrick Corbin is probably on a better team. They're both on pretty good teams.
Yeah.
I think I lean with Gunnar Hoglund here.
Yep. It's not a great. It's I hope there could be a better choice. I just wouldn't consider Corbin. I just can't. Like, there's got to be another option, and maybe I don't know. I mean, if it's a weekly league and you got to start someone, I would do Hoglund. Just upside, I think is higher, but risk with both. Like, that's what happens.
Yeah, that is true. And it's also, we're again assuming deep leagues, assuming that you don't have any smash spot options on the waiver wire. Joe wants to know, is Gonsolin now a drop? He gets the Mets and Yankees next. He's got Jack Leiter, Zebby Matthews are available. Ryan Weathers is available as well. I have personally, despite his really hot start, I have personally kind of viewed Tony Gonsolin as a streamer in a 12-team format, and this is a 12-team format. It's important to note that, he in his last start obviously was yesterday, poor start against the Angels. 4 runs on 4 hits in 4 innings, 5 walks, 3 strikeouts. 2 of his first 3 starts were against the Marlins. And yes, he shut out the Diamondbacks. But that was a weird start. Like, he didn't have, I wrote about this in my starting pitcher news column that comes out every Wednesday. He had 6 whiffs in that game. It was just all called strikes. Like, the Diamondbacks just were letting him get ahead constantly. And so it felt a little fluky to me. And so I would treat Tony Gonsolin as a streamer. I don't love streaming him in the matchups that you just mentioned. And so I'm okay moving on from him. I don't know that I would move on from him for Ryan Weathers against the Cubs. I understand that worked out for Weathers the last time. I kind of think, to me, if we're doing this as a weekly stream, Jack Leiter gets the White Sox or Zebby Matthews gets the Royals. I think Leiter is my top choice of these 3 guys on the wire if we're treating this as a streaming situation.
Yeah, Leiter stood out to me as well. I mean, the thing about the Twins, their pitching has been outstanding, but their lineup, just take a look at it right now. They're going to struggle to score runs. Byron Buxton going down, not as concerned about Carlos Correa because he's struggled so much offensively this year. But without Buxton, without Matt Wallner, that lineup just isn't very good. And Zebby's still trying to figure it out in the majors too. So yeah, I'd go Leiter. I'm excited by Weathers, but the matchup isn't great, like you said. But yeah, I'd take Leiter over Gonsolin, maybe just going forward in general.
Yeah, I'm looking right now because I Weathers is my pick of the group. Yeah, and the week of the 26th, he gets a 2-start week. It's Padres Giants, and so it's But again, if this is a weekly lineup lock league, a 2-start week. Padres, you kind of would rather avoid. The Giants are fine. They're obviously playing well, but it's not an offense I'm I need to run from. So I
mean, Wilmer Flores is terrifying. Wilmer Flores is I said Wilmer Flores is terrifying right now for some reason.
Yes. Well, but he goes on these stretches.
Man, crazy.
Let's turn to hitters for a second. Perry wants to know, how are we feeling about Ben Rice? Although his OPS remains high, his batting average and playing time are down. Is he a drop? I still really like Ben Rice. I like the quality of contact. I like the approach. He has a really strong approach at the plate. He doesn't really get himself out. He has a near 19% barrel rate in over 100 batted ball events. So like that's starting to get very legitimate. We don't want to read into, X stats too much, but like a batting average of 250, but an expected batting average of 292 really matches up with the fact that this guy makes 86% contact in the zone. He only chases outside of the zone at 22%. Like he gets pitched in the zone a lot. He doesn't swing and miss that much. Yeah. I think the playing time has been limited because Trent Grisham is on like an absolute heater right now, and the Yankees need to get him in the lineup as well. I'd rather not cut Ben Rice, but if you're in like a 10 and 12 team league and, you really need at bats, he might be a 3 or 4 game a week guy for the time being until Grisham comes back down to reality.
And Rice, when he is in the lineup, will probably hit in a favorable spot, which is nice too. It's just one of those kind of annoying situations where you need to watch your lineup on a daily basis. Yeah. And I'd actually rather have him in a daily league. Obviously, weekly is a much tougher case.
I benched him in my NFBC leagues this week because it's weekly. He has 3 games to start the week, and 2 of them are going to be against DeGrom and Eovaldi. And I was just kind of like, okay, maybe he starts 2 of those, and if if DeGrom is one of those 2, it's like maybe I get 1 good game out of him, and that's the calculus I guess you need to do with Ben Rice right now. But I'm willing to do that for the time being rather than just straight up cut him.
Right. Agreed.
Speaking of cutting, Dad, who's here every week, Dad, just thanks for showing up all the time. It just feels it feels good when Dad's here. He said Jose Altuve is batting 175 in the month of May and has not recorded an RBI since April 30th. Can we expect him to turn it around, or is he approaching drop territory? And then he had the similar question to Adley Rutschman. Are we expecting to turn it around, or should we not count on it? So between Altuve and Rutschman, are you at a point where you actually contemplating dropping either of those players?
No way. I can't do it. I mean, there are the obvious reasons to be concerned about Jose Altuve as he's aging here, but you have to think he'll eventually figure it out with a track record, and certainly with a catcher, you should be willing to be even more patient, just given the position from a fantasy perspective. Although we do have some youth being served right now at the catcher position, not entirely sold on those options being reliable in a mixed league. But I don't think you can cut either of these guys. A little bit worried about Altuve because, Father Time is undefeated. But yeah, it's one of those things where we could easily be in July and Jose Altuve's hit 300 for the past 2 months. So yeah, I can't give up on that.
I agree. I more worried about Altuve than the 2. Actually, I had an article that came out last week on looking at hitters to buy into based on their overall process. And Adley Rutschman was on that article. I mean, I understand the results aren't good, but a couple of things just about Adley Rutschman. First of all, 209 batting average, 273 expected batting average. Now, why is his expected batting average so high? Well, career high barrel rate, career high average exit velocity, career best swinging strike rate of just 4.5%. He is not swinging and missing at all. Career high contact rate, career high zone contact rate, career low chase rate. So he's chasing out of the zone less than he ever has. He's making more contact than he ever has. He's making louder contact than he ever has. He's swinging and missing less than he ever has. His fly ball rates, ground ball rates, pull rates, they're all within 2% of what they were in previous years. So it's not he's making a lot of contact, but it's, it's up in the air. Everything about this is everything looks like a hitter that should be having a really strong season, or at least having a career norm season. And so, sure, maybe Adley Rutschman isn't the best catcher in baseball, like, was the narrative when he was coming up as a prospect. But I see no reason why he doesn't end this season as a 250, 260, 20 homer guy like he has been the last 2 years. Everything about his process and approach and under the hood seems exactly the same, if not better than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. What's alarming about Altuve is that if you look at his expected stats, it's not good. I wouldn't recommend. I mean, I would also, just to see what's happening here, but at the same time, it's kind of sad how much blue is in that. How much blue is on his StatCast page right now.
Yeah, that's the turning 35, and it might be, it's tough. Also, like, I don't have any stats to back this up, but I feel like, given that he is like shorter in stature, I always, like, Dustin Pedroia always talked about how max effort he needed to be to get the most out of his body, especially like as a hitter. I just wonder, like, there's not like easy power in what Altuve does. There's not, it's like, it is an effort. And I wonder if that grinds you down a little bit more than, some of the guys who are more maybe athletically gifted or naturally, strong or whatever it is.
I wonder also, like, playing left field, like learning a new position, like just mentally, day to day, like what does that do to his preparation? That is slightly different. I mean, you never know what's going through these players' heads. Like, I think about that when a young catcher is called up and they have to, in addition of thinking about like hitting major league pitching, you're also managing essentially a staff, with different stuff and different velocity, and that's a lot for a young player to think about. So I don't know. It's one of those other, storylines you have to think about with every player, basically.
Yeah. Frank wants to know, where does Jordan Lawler fit in with the Diamondbacks? The question is just like, not really anywhere right now. And that's a little bit of a problem. I mean, they said they were going to play him 4 games a week. He played 2 games last week. One at short and one at second. That's a little bit of the nature. First of all, I mean, listen, he's had 9 at bats, but he is 0 for 9. He has struck out 5 times, walked once. And that's not an indictment on the player. Like you just talked about, rookies coming up, like catching, learning a new position, whatever. Like a rookie who goes from playing every day to like not knowing if you're going to be in the lineup when you show up to the field and have, or what position you're going to play, and having to adjust in that way, it's really tough. I don't think that this was the best spot to call him up for his development. And it seems like he's not guaranteed even those 4 games a week. I still like him as an overall prospect, and I'm still like not worried about him if you're in like keeper, dynasty, whatever formats, but it doesn't feel good right now for redraft leagues. And I don't think he needs to be on your teams.
Yeah. I mean, obviously he's an exciting prospect. He's a name we've known for a long time. So I understood the excitement upon his call up, but there's just not a spot for him unless they are really truly dedicated to kind of sprinkling him in and moving players to the DH spot to give them kind of like a half day off type of thing. I see no reason why they can't do that, but they're not doing it, which tells me a lot, and also makes me question why they called him up at all. Because I think you'd rather him be getting those steady at bats, whether it's the minors or the majors. So it's just not an ideal situation for him or for fantasy managers.
No, and maybe something will clear up in the second half of the year, or you don't want to root for injuries, but they do happen. When we can see how it goes from there. But for now, I'm pretty tepid on Jordan Lawler. I feel like I'm way more interested in Tommy Kahnle than a lot of people are. I just picked him up. I picked him up in my 12-team NFBC league, or my online championship this week. I picked him up over Dennis Santana, so that's like the level that we're talking about. I get that it's that this question is about saves only, and Will Vest got the last save.
Yeah,
but Kahnle is still being used at the end of games.
Yeah.
The Tigers have wanted to rotate closers. They play matchups. Kahnle, I think, is kind of their like lefty closer because he's so changeup heavy that when they get like heavy left-handed hitters, he comes into the game. The Tigers have not really cared that if their closer gets swings and misses. I mean, Jason Foley threw like 101, but couldn't miss a bat last year, and he kept getting saves. And the Tigers are really good. So like, Kahnle has 5 saves right now. Like, I think he ends the year between like 12 and 15 saves while producing pretty solid ratios on a Tigers team. And so like, I know that you don't want that as your RP1, but like if you're talking about like your final reliever spot, I don't necessarily think you need to drop him unless like you were picking up Jordan Romano on waivers or something this weekend.
Right. It all depends on who you would pick up, I guess is how I would answer this question, obviously, right? I mean, Kahnle hasn't gotten a save this month. I think his last save was, let's pull it up here, April 30th. So that's frustrating.
Yeah.
Obviously. And the Tigers have been amazing during this time. That's kind of crazy. He hasn't gotten a save in this time, to be honest. So yeah, it just depends on who you drop him for. But, you know, Kahnle good for ratios, at least, at the very least right now.
Yeah, I'm looking this up right now because I don't think that like, I also don't think Will Vest has all that many saves either. Yeah, so there have been 3 saves in the month of May. Will Vest has 2, Bo Brisky has 1, and Tommy Kahnle has a blown save.
Okay.
So I guess it could have been 2-1-1 if Kahnle hadn't blown the save. So like that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Is like that is gonna be a little bit of that mix and match where he'll still get thrown in there. And a team like the Tigers only having 4 save chances in the month of May is crazy.
Blowouts and like walk-off wins. That's what they've been doing. Basically.
For sure.
So
see if we get a question from somebody who is Adam mentions that Ben Rice is on roster life support. I think that's probably a pretty fair description. Baseball. We haven't had a question from him yet today. He says, how do we feel about Matt Shaw getting called up? And then where does he rank with the Josh Young, Jake Berger, Luis Garcia, Gleyber Torres group? This is interesting because I guess, does Matt Shaw have second base eligibility in some formats? Because
I think, he does. Okay. Depends on the league, but
Right. So first of all, I feel pretty good about Matt Shaw getting called up. It was only 68 plate appearances at the start of the year. And so, yes, he struggled. And yes, I think there are going to be cold stretches still. We talked about it's like a pretty steep learning curve. But I was in on him at the start of the year. There's a little bit of power, a little bit of speed, good batting average. I think I'd take Josh Young over him, though, at third base. I think if we flash back to preseason 2024, what people thought about Josh Young before he had the wrist injury.
He was Matt Shaw before Matt Shaw.
Right. And he's been looking pretty good over the last month. And then Jake Berger is just such a frustrating, like, do you want power? Because then play Jake Berger. Like, he's going to have really hot stretches and really cold stretches. And so that's a full fit, like a fit for me. I like Gleyber Torres this year. I think I'd put Gleyber Torres and Josh Young over Matt Shaw and then put Matt Shaw in the middle of that group, I would say.
I mean, Matt Shaw is going to steal more bases than all 4 of those. So that's I think that's really important. Think about what you need. And I think that makes the decision, right?
Yeah, it is very league dependent, but you should feel good about Matt Shaw. And if you have at least bench space, he's worth picking up and putting on your bench because we talked about how good that lineup is and that team is, and you definitely want pieces of that lineup. Michael asked, starting pitcher guys I picked up off to nice starts, are they for real? So let's do that part first. Do you think Matthew Liberatore or Andrew Abbott are for real?
I think I like Andrew Abbott a little better, but yeah, he's been off to a good start this year. Walks are a little high. That's nothing new with him, but is missing more bats. So, I mean, it's a tough ballpark to survive in, but I think I like Abbott a little better.
Yeah, and I would say I don't know that either of them are for real. If you're thinking like, are you getting this level of production?
Yeah.
Liberatore has been really good this year. Some of it is like an approach shift. Well, first of all, he's using two fastballs a lot more, and he started throwing the changeup earlier in the count. He's a guy that I wrote about a couple of weeks ago in my starting pitcher news column, so you could check that out. I like what he's doing. I think he's a better version of what he was before, but I don't think he's this. Um, and then I'm curious your point on the second part of this. I have been banging the table for a while now. James and I are both pretty adamant that Sandy Alcantara is not a drop. Ariel Cohen had me on the Beat the Shift podcast this week, and that was awesome. And thank you to him. And I ranted about how Sandy Alcantara is not a drop. I wrote in my starting pitcher news column, I broke down his arsenal and I said he's not a drop. I encourage you to read that article to get like my full thoughts. But the long and short of my opinion, and you can tell me if you disagree, is the velocity is back. The pitch shapes are pretty similar. He added a new curveball, which is a slower pitch, which is useful for him because everything he threw before was 90 miles an hour or faster. But the command is not good right now. And so he's not getting chases outside of the strike zone, and he's not hitting his spots as much in the strike zone. But you kind of expect that coming off Tommy John surgery. And so if our only real issue with him right now is command, I expect that to continue to improve as the starts go on. And I think if I can hold him, expecting him to kind of start expecting things to start clicking sometime in like June, that's kind of my expectation, is that at some point in the middle of June, you're going to look up and say, oh, that looks like Sandy.
Yeah, and I think we saw part of that over the weekend. He looked really good the first few innings. He threw 100 miles an hour, his hardest pitch so far this season. So you're seeing the flashes. The thing about Alcantara, he's a guy that you would inevitably regret dropping, and I hate that feeling when that happens. When someone else picks him up and he thrives, and we know what Alcantara is capable of. Like you said, command sometimes the last thing to return after Tommy John surgery. So I'd bank on that turning out to be the case as the summer rolls along.
Yeah. Another drop question is, would you drop Zach Gallen? Outside of his starts against New York, he's been pedestrian at best. Should we sit him till he figures it out, or should we drop him? Where are you at on Zach Gallen?
Well, given that I've watched his starts against the Mets, I think he's great. I don't know what you're talking about.
He's going to win the Cy Young.
But yeah, I mean, I think it would depend on what the matchups are. But yeah, I would probably keep rolling him out in most cases. But I would just depend on who he's facing for now. I mean, I think he does have the Cardinals coming up on Friday, and then it's the Pirates. So like, you're probably going to start him, right?
I would not be dropping him. I would be treating him more like a streamer.
Okay.
Or like, I think Paul Sporer had the term like team streamer, where you keep the guy on your roster, but you just pick the matchups.
Yeah.
I had Gallen ranked like in the low 40s in my starting pitcher rankings coming into this year. He gives up a lot of hard contact. He's very much reliant on like deception and tunneling and sequencing of his pitches, which makes me a little nervous.
Yeah.
His strikeout rate has gone down every year since 2022. His walk rate has gone up each of the last 3 years. Like there are reasons to be concerned, and I don't think we are ever getting Zach Gallen top 20 starting pitcher in fantasy back again. But could you get Zach Gallen? Hey, he's a solid SP4 on my fantasy team. Like, yeah, I think he could settle into that role. And so that's not somebody you drop, but it's somebody you're just cautious with.
Yeah, I mean, last year it had an xERA of 3.97. The year before that, the xERA was 4.16. Like, maybe this is who he is now, you know?
Yeah, I think it might be. Are we confident in putting Strider in our lineups? Yes, just do it.
Yeah, it's the Nationals too. No offense to the Nationals, but like that's a winnable game for the Braves. So there's that, and also it's Spencer Strider, so that makes it easy.
I think you got to do it. Frank wants to know some, or no thoughts about possible closer for Texas, Shawn Armstrong. Also was not aware that Chris Martin was 38 years old. Yeah, Chris Martin is he's
been around.
He's been around. I think he mentioned that he was pitching in. I think he was pitching in Texas because it was one of those wanted to be close to home, kind of like you see guys do that when they're thinking about calling it quits at some point in time. Luke Jackson is still healthy and he's still pitching. I do think that the Luke Jackson ride may come to an end at some point in time. And it seemed like Shawn Armstrong was getting some looks as the closer when Jackson and Martin were both sidelined. I expect Martin to be out probably for a while based on his reaction to throwing that pitch yesterday.
Yeah.
And so sure, Shawn Armstrong joins Robert Garcia, Jacob Webb as this group of maybe they get some saves when Luke Jackson falters. I know our own George Bissell loves Emiliano Teodo, who's in AAA, but he has an 8 ERA in AAA. So
yeah,
I don't necessarily think that's happening. Could David Robertson come back to Texas?
I was going to say Robertson.
It's
so weird he's not on a team. I don't really understand that. But Robert Garcia gave up the home run to Paredes yesterday, which temporarily tempers the enthusiasm there, but he's been really good. So I think he's worth a spec pickup probably.
Yeah. Why not? It's I wouldn't go crazy with it, but Shawn Armstrong to me is the same as Pierce Johnson with the Braves. It's he's been pitching pretty well. Raisel Iglesias has not been pitching all that well. It's probably not going to happen, but if you have a spot on your roster for a sure why not, that's a sure why not, and see what happens.
Right.
Dylan says, which athletics SPRP has a better outlook short and long term, JT Ginn or Gunnar Hoglund? Are both better rest of season options versus Ryan Nelson, starting pitcher, relief pitcher, 14 team weekly points league? Do you have a take on those three names?
I mean, I like Hoglund the best. That's, but yeah, I think they're all, I could easily be swayed depending on upcoming performance. You know what I mean? So I don't really necessarily have a strong take.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to channel my best James Shiano here because he always does the points league questions and he's had a few on Ryan Nelson. And I know that James is a fan of Nelson. And I know that he thinks that there's a chance he could stick in the rotation. Remember that Eduardo Rodriguez was placed on the IL on Friday. And so Nelson, I think, is in the rotation now for the Diamondbacks. And so I kind of think I'm going to go with Nelson.
Okay.
Out of this group. I'm also looking at the recent starts he's going to get. He gets the Dodgers next, which isn't great, but then he gets Pittsburgh the week after. And so maybe you don't want to use Nelson this week, but I would then pivot to Nelson. I think, Eduardo Rodriguez wasn't looking good and is now hurt. So crazier things have happened than Nelson sticking in that rotation.
Yeah, fair enough.
Let's see. Oh, Jetta says, so Jack Caglione was called up to AAA. He says, are you scared of Caglione pulling a Nick Kurtz once he's up? What are your thoughts? Which I guess I'm curious. I'll spin this into a question of just what are your thoughts on Jack Caglione, but also what is your temperature or what is your patience level for guys like this where we know they're talented, but we know it's increasingly hard to jump to the big leagues and immediately hit the ground running. So if Caglione gets called up, are you willing to pick these guys up immediately, or do you think right now it's best to give them half a season?
Yeah, it's so hard with position prospects now. It's a coin flip at this point. You can be showing elite power in the minors and be hitting 350, and then you come up like a Nick Kurtz, who's he's striking out over 30% of the time. He does have that one home run, but and he's sitting against some lefties. It's like it's hard to justify using him in a a standard mixed league right now. It just is. And so Caglione, if he does get called up, which I think he probably will at some point this year, but I I would pick him up just to see, but it's not someone you can't count on the production, which is a bummer. I think about, and this is like a bigger picture thing with just baseball in general compared to like the NFL and the NBA, where rookies come in and they make an instant impact,
Mhm.
and baseball is just not that way. And I think that hurts baseball,
Yeah. It's weird that really started to happen once they cut a lot of minor league teams and the talent in
Yeah.
the minor leagues started to
Yeah.
drain a little bit. And then it's like, oh,
Right.
why is it such a big jump? And that's part of the reason it's such a big jump. And it is unfortunate. And I do think like we need to take that into account. I'm still willing to pick these guys up in redraft leagues if I don't have the pressure of needing them to start.
Yeah.
Like if I can funnel them in and out of my roster, or they're like a bench stash to see if they can hit the ground running, I'm happy to pick them up. I got outbid everywhere for Nick Kurtz when I thought I had like really high bids in my leagues, and I guess I'm okay with it now because
Yeah.
those people are now like, oh my God, how much money did I spend? I still believe in the player, and like, yeah, maybe he gets hot maybe he pulls a Lawrence Butler, right? Like Butler got
Yeah.
demoted and then didn't come back up until June last year and started raking. Like maybe that happens to Nick Kurtz. Maybe he goes down for 6 weeks and comes back up. Like we can't put so much pressure on these guys to perform right away.
And I think I saw Mike Petriello from MLB.com put something out earlier, but think about the Rookie of the Year award race, if you even want to call it a race, this year so far, in the National League and the American League. Like, who are the good rookies at the moment? Like, Christian Campbell has been terrible this
Yeah,
month.
well, the first month it was like, oh, obviously it's Christian Campbell. He's been
Yeah.
great, and then he's struggled. Yeah, like
Jason Dominguez had a 3-homer game recently, but he's been a little touch and go. Drake Baldwin, I think, is the runaway guy in the National League right
especially
now.
if he starts to play. Oh, well, here's the runaway right now. I'm looking right now by WAR, I guess. Just so Jacob Wilson still qualifies as a rookie.
Yeah.
So he seems like the clear leader. This is like so Jacob Wilson has the best WAR of any rookie. Drake Baldwin is second. I could give you 40 guesses, and I'm not sure you would guess who's third.
Is it Chandler Simpson?
It's not.
Okay.
He's a teammate of Christian Campbell.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, is it the catcher?
It's Carlos Narvaez, the catcher.
Yeah.
Like, and if you go by like, weighted runs created plus, however you want to do it, it's like Drake Baldwin, Augustine Ramirez, Jacob Wilson, Jake Mangum, Dominguez. Griffin Conine is still eighth. He's out for the year. It's rough. Like, I guess Trey Sweeney is like putting himself in the conversation. Matt Shaw, obviously, now if he's back up, he can enter in the conversation again. But yeah, it is definitely it's rough out there.
It's not great. Not great.
This is kind of a follow-up, but Dad wants to know if you would drop Nick Kurtz for somebody like Miguel Vargas.
I probably would. Yeah. I don't love it. I don't love it. And it's one of those things I feel like I know the second I drop Kurtz, he's going to like turn on the power. But Vargas is playing pretty well right now. And he has the prospect pedigree too. He has the opportunity in Chicago. So yeah, I think I'd go with Vargas right now. It's crazy to think I wouldn't have said anything close to that like a month ago. But yeah, I think Vargas is a play.
Yeah, Vargas has popped on a lot of like the leaderboards I was doing based on like plate discipline, and just because his approach was so good, but the results were terrible early on. But in 15 games so far in May, again, 15 games, not a big sample, but 296, 5 home runs, 12 RBIs, 9 runs scored. Like that's a pretty good 15 game stretch, and we know he's going to play every day in Chicago. So like, yeah, because what's under the hood also looks good. I would take a gamble there for sure. Frank wants to know, just because it's a teammate related thing, what are we doing with Andrew Vaughn and Ryan McMahon? Are we rostering Rowdy Tellez and Miguel Andujar instead? And no, DJ, there aren't better options. Oh wait, there's Brett Beatty.
I have takes on Brett Beatty. He should be the third baseman every day for the Mets right now.
And are you moving Vientos to DH?
Yeah.
Okay.
Vientos has regressed so poorly so far this year. It's almost a little bit shocking how bad he's been defensively. He should not be a third baseman today. Maybe he can work on some things, but his arm's really good. But yeah, Brett Beatty's got to be the third baseman right now for the Mets.
Can I ask you? I guess it's Mets corner, but I just blurbed for our website last night or yesterday afternoon. Ronnie Mauricio stole his first base of the season, which is noteworthy coming off an ACL injury. He's hitting relatively well. He's going to stay in AAA for a while because he missed all of last year with a torn ACL. But where do you think he ultimately fits with this team? Like, where should the Mets start playing him at AAA to say, this is your best path forward?
I would hope it's third base. I like Acuna, but I just don't know if he's going to hit for enough power. But he's a really good defender, excellent base runner, brings some level of like dynamicism. Is that
dynamicism? Dynamicism.
You got it. You said it right, not me.
Yeah.
To the lineup, which the Mets have sorely needed. So, I think Mauricio should play third. And if you look at what he did, I guess 2 years ago, maybe more when he initially was called up, but as far as average exit velocity, barrel rate, all that stuff, he was off the charts, just in a very small sample. So we know the potential's in there. He's a name a lot of people have forgotten about, but there's some fantasy goodness in there if and when he gets that opportunity.
Yeah, I'd love to see him get a chance late in the season if he's healthy. We'll see how that all goes. To the question at hand, I listen. Ryan McMahon was another guy who was in that article on plate discipline and and process skills, and like it was so weird. Like I said, I don't know what to make of it because he was making better swing decisions and chasing less outside of the zone, but making less contact outside of the zone than he ever had. So like to me, it all felt strange. Like it didn't feel warranted. Then he went on that really hot stretch 2 weeks ago at home. He was kind of like meh on the road this week, but now this whole next week he's going to be at home. I think Ryan McMahon has kind of fallen, and especially now he's only third base eligible, so you can't move him around. But I think he's fallen into like the pretty solid 240, 20, 25 homer hitter who you can play when he's home and probably sit on the road. And maybe in a 10 or 12 team league, that's somebody you keep dropping and picking up and dropping and picking up. And in a 15 team league, you bench him. But I'm okay with that. And I wouldn't be dropping him for Rowdy Tellez or Miguel Andujar, but I think I'm okay dropping Andrew Vaughn for Rowdy Tellez or Miguel Andujar. Rowdy Tellez does this all the time where every year you look at his barrel rate and his plate discipline skills and you're like, he's good. And then the surface level stats are like, but he has hot streaks all the time. And the Mariners offense is running really hot right now. And Rowdy Tellez is hitting the hell out of the ball and making good swing decisions. And so I could take a gamble there, or Miguel Andujar's their starting third baseman on the A's now in a pretty good lineup.
In a good ballpark.
And a guy who he's not a power guy, but he always makes a lot of contact and will run a solid batting average in a good home ballpark. So I would take either one of those guys over Vaughn.
Oh, yeah, sure. I think all of these players are. I would probably keep McMahon just for that Coors Field upside. He would be my top choice out of this group. But would you take Batty over any of these four?
I would take Batty over. I think Vaughn for me is the last.
Okay.
I think that I would say that I would probably take Batty over everybody but McMahon if I knew he was going to play all the time.
Yeah.
In his current situation, Batty also sitting against all lefties. I would probably put Batty Oh my God, am I putting him under Rowdy Tellez and Miguel
I,
Andujar? Like
I
I
was
might,
thinking,
I might.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Because
there's the husk of Starling Marte is still in the Mets lineup.
right.
But Jesse Winker's out for a long time. Like the opportunity's there for Brett Beatty to take it.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this right now. Like the Athletics don't have a left-handed hitting bench option in the infield. So Miguel Andujar, like he's gonna play against most pitchers, righties and lefties, because there's not like a situational replacement per se.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, and Rowdy Tellez is a right now thing. He's just hot right now, and I would play him. Baseball wants to know Jake Berger or Nate Lowe in a 5x5 league that has hits instead of batting average.
Probably Low.
I'm gonna go with Lowe on this one as well.
Yeah.
Robert D'Souza says he read about an under the radar pickup, and I wondered if our thoughts on Sawyer Gibson Long. I'm curious if you're under the radar pickup or you read about that. If it was Nick Pollock, because Nick has talked about Sawyer Gibson Long like all the time.
Okay.
And talked about him in his preseason rankings. Listen, I liked Sawyer Gibson Long when he debuted in 2023, and then he missed like all of last year with after Tommy John surgery. He threw 42 pitches in his last start. Oh no, yeah, three innings, 32 pitches. That's pretty efficient in his last start. Hit 94. Control is obviously a little off. I think that you're not looking at Sawyer Gibson Long getting a shot with the Tigers until maybe August. And then you have to decide what is their rotation going to look like in August? And are they willing to actually just put him in the rotation? This strikes me as a team that's going to think they can contend and probably will trade for a starting pitcher. Right. And so I don't think Sawyer Gibson Long gets a shot to be a starter for the Tigers until next season, is just my gut feeling.
Yeah, I agree. And the Tigers are doing fine right now from a pitching perspective. So there's not a great need. But he's a name to continue thinking about for sure.
Yeah. And we will blurb all of his rehab starts, so you will get to know. AL only ad. Robert needs a Cole Reagans replacement. How do you rank? And remember that part of this, I guess, is Reagans isn't set to miss a lot of time, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So who is your 2 or 3 week replacement for Cole Reagans? Zebby Matthews, Jeffrey Springs, Noah Cameron, or Hunter Dobbins?
I really like what I've seen from Dobbins so far. He might be my top choice.
Yeah, I agree. I think because this is a short-term thing and this isn't like you're replacing somebody who's out for the year, I think you're going for who is most likely to help me in the next 2 or 3 starts. And I think it's probably Hunter Dobbins. And I honestly think the second option might just be Noah Cameron, who's basically taken Reagans' spot in the rotation, just because I think it's a good team context. I think he's a solid pitcher. I think they've shown that they're going to let him go deep enough into games. The home ballpark is pretty good. And so that to me is better than Zebby Matthews, who I think has the highest upside of the group, but could easily just start going like 4 2/3 or less in the next 2 or 3 starts. And Springs, who has a horrible home ballpark and has been fairly average so far this year.
Yeah, it's just a bad situation there in Sacramento. So I mean, I like Springs, just not in that context. So he's a tough one to roster in mixed leagues right now.
Yeah, I agree. We've had a couple of questions on Yelich. And so I think the first person who asked was Perry, who first said not a question, but he just wanted to vent about Jackson Chourio going 0 for 17 his past 4 games. But then said, is Yelich droppable or should we continue to hold? We've gotten no indications that Yelich is hurt,
right?
But the production has just certainly not been there. You talked a little bit about being worried about Jose Altuve. Christian Yelich will be 34 and has had multiple back surgeries or injuries. Does have 7 home runs and 8 steals, which is helpful for fantasy, but is hitting just 199. So where are you at on Yelich?
I mean, I think the most troubling part of Yelich is the strikeouts this year is way higher than what we've seen in recent years. So I don't know. I haven't dug deep enough into why that might be, but that jumps off the page to me. But as far as, hitting the ball, I mean, his max exit velocity is still matching up with what he did last year. So he's still hitting the ball fairly hard when he does make contact. Like you said, he's still giving you some category juice, which is nice. So he's not someone I would drop, but I'd probably at least be thinking like, what is my regular rotation with my, fantasy outfielders for sure.
Yeah. I can't drop Yelich right now, but I get that it's a struggle and it's unfortunate.
And don't drop Jackson Cheerio.
Yeah. Don't bench him. Don't do it. Just keep him in your lineup. You're fine. We've got two final questions. First one is about Jacob Misiorowski, who is Yelich's, I guess, kind of teammate, but teammate in AAA. Dad says, I don't know much about him besides his recent 103-mile-an-hour fastball. Is he legit someone to stash? Yes, he is legit. No, I would not yet stash him. Misiorowski has been a really kind of like well-regarded prospect for the Brewers for a while. They started to transition him to a little bit of a bullpen role last year because his command was a huge problem, and they thought he would help them more as a reliever. Yeah. This year, the command has gotten a lot better. He has just 19 walks to 59 strikeouts in 49 and a third innings. That is a 10% walk rate. That's down from like stuff that's been in the mid 14s over the last few years. But right now, the Brewers have Aaron Savali like a week or two away, Brandon Woodruff like a week or two away, Jose Quintana, who is not going to be out for a long time. So I don't think Misiorowski needs to be stashed because I think that they want to see him have a very prolonged stretch of plus command before they call him up. And so I think they're going to want to see him make, like, unless they are dealing with far more injuries, I think they're going to want to see him make like at least 3 or 4 more starts with like really strong command before he starts becoming an actual option for them.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The Brewers do have a lot of guys who are injured who will be making their way back. Brandon Woodruff, I'm really fascinated to see what he's going to be when he comes back. I don't, it's a tough surgery to come back from that he had. So it's, we have this version in our mind of kind of that frontline starter. I just don't know what he's going to be, but
yeah,
certainly if he's out there and you can stash him, you probably should.
Stash him and see what happens. Real quick, this or that, would you rather have Josh Young or Royce Lewis?
Oh man, it's a tough one. There's positives and negatives with each, and I'm going through all of it right now. I think I would take Josh Young. I don't like saying it, but I think I would.
Yeah. It's safer. I get if you want to, if you're in a really good spot and want to chase the upside, I get it with Royce Lewis. But yeah. Jetta says Brian Reynolds hold. I assume yes.
It's so shocking how terrible he's been. I don't get it. I don't understand. But hey, that's the Pirates in general right now. I mean, Paul Skeens goes out, throws a brilliant game and loses. He went 8 innings and lost. It's just sad.
Well, that leads Dad says, do we think Mick Abel will stick around in the rotation after Sunday when he outdueled Paul Skeens? So first, I'll just say I agree with you on Brian Reynolds. I would hold him. He's been one of the most consistent hitters in baseball for the last few years. Yeah. Like, just we know that he's like 270, 20 homers, like 80 or whatever. I don't think Mick Abel sticks in the rotation. They said it was going to be just one start. Aaron Nola is not expected to be out for that long, and they have Taijuan Walker. And so I think they're just going to roll with Walker. And so I think that you're okay with that. It's unfortunate, but maybe later on down the line, Mick Abel will come back up, but I just don't think it's going to be right now.
I mean, this is a former top prospect who's kind of like seen his stock go up and down. He's made some really nice improvements this year. If that's real, he'll be a part of the Phillies plan sooner or later. So, hey, credit to him for, making adjustments this year, coming up, having, a great start, like a franchise record type of debut
Yeah.
for the Phillies. So let's see if he can keep it going.
I will just say shout out. I forget who wrote it, but there was an article on the Athletic today from the Phillies beat writer about Mick Abel's mental approach that he reshifted to get to this level, and I thought it was a really good read. So feel free to check that out. Dylan just snuck in a question I'm gonna ask before we go, but basically just in a Tyler Stevenson, are you holding on to him for the summer months in Great American Ballpark? He hasn't been good since coming off the IL. Like, what's your patience level here?
I mean, would you rather have? I mean, I know a lot of people are adding like Dalton Rushing and Moises
No.
Ballesteros with the Cubs. I would not pick up those guys over Tyler Stevenson. So,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah, I would rather, I guess in this question, he was platooning him with Austin Wells in a one catcher league. So would you rather just say, hey, I'm going to stick with Wells and bench and cut Stevenson?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably better ways to maximize your roster than having two catchers if it's if it's a one catcher league.
I think I would agree with that. If it's a one catcher league, there are options that will present themselves.
Yep.
And then Dad just closing us out by saying, glad to see DJ back on the
Oh,
show. I remember him soloing these live discussions, so always great to see him back in the chair.
thanks, Dad.
It was great. It was great
Appreciate
to
it.
have you here, DJ.
Oh, this was fun.
Yeah,
We'll make it a thing.
We'll tell James he's got to take a break every now and then.
But I'm happy to come in here and help out. Throughout the summer, make some cameo appearances. So
Yeah,
and stay tuned. NBCSports.com. I'll have my weekly power rankings up later today. There's a new number one.
Ooh,
yeah.
Is it the Angels?
They're on the list.
Listen, if you beat the best, you are the best, right? Isn't that how it works?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So that is this week. My starting pitcher news article comes out on Wednesday. I'm going to be looking at this influx of young starting pitching talent that people are picking up, the like Logan Henderson, Noah Cameron, Zebby Matthews group to kind of help us to see who is more sustainable for the future. And then remember that every Sunday I do my waiver wire column over on NBC Sports. Also, again, just a reminder about the Rotoworld player news page. Keep it open, keep it updated, bookmark it, whatever you need. We feel it's great, especially on Mondays as you're thinking about setting your lineup. Those decisions that come down to the wire. Is this guy going to play? Is it not? Is it a late minute scratch? All those things, like we will have that covered for you on the page. So make sure you use that to help with your decisions.
We also have WNBA player news. We launched in recent months, but the season started on Friday and folks are going to it, which is nice to see. But if you haven't added that to your rotation and you follow the league, definitely check that out.
Check that out and check us out again every Monday here at noon Eastern time. We will make an announcement. We haven't yet decided. I think we'll be off for Memorial Day next week, next Monday. But we'll figure out if we can do it another day, or you can just ask us some questions online and we'll try and take them on Twitter or stuff like that. Cool. So have a great rest of your Monday, and we will see you on the next episode of the Rotoworld Player News Q&A.